Hello again. Today we're going to take a look at the Ikko OH300. I've had these, I don't know, 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks by this point. I paid $30. It was like $31 after tax, I think. I'm seeing them now for $35. They're listed at $50, but last I checked, they went on sale. I think it was yesterday or something. I don't know exactly when I'm putting this video out, but I've seen them on sale, 25% off the regular MSRP at $49.99, so about $35. What you get is this box, relatively plain box. I mean, have a picture of that. A pretty scary looking frequency graph on the back. See if you can make any of that out. It's CNC plus PC plus photochromic glass, which we'll get into that. A 10mm composite liquid crystal diaphragm, has a sensitivity of 107 dB, 32 ohm impedance, and yada yada yada, the regular norm. You have that. You have the Chinese characters and stuff like that on the bottom. Nothing special here, just a repeat of the specs there. Now, oh, you also get the nice fancy high-res logo, so these must be good. All right, let's see. Now in the box you would get your IMs. You get a little card with your service code numbers and stuff like that. You get, what is that, 6 pairs of tips. As you can see, I'm not using any of them. They're not terrible tips, but they're kind of like I don't know if any of you guys remember the tips from the Melee, and there's a reason why I'm bringing that up. They're very similar to that, at least as far as the materials. I think not the worst, but they're certainly not that great. You do get two kind, and it's unfortunate that the wide bore, if you can see that, that's the fat wide bore, has a very short stem, but unfortunately these are very thin, and it's, I don't know if you can hear that, but not only are they thin, they kind of pop. Instead of like softly going into place, it's like they almost just pop in, and not that great at keeping a seal. The ones with the thin bore, if you can see that, are a little thicker. They don't necessarily suffer from that popping, but I'm not a fan of the sound with the thin bore. I'll get into that later. In this box would be the cable. Nothing crazy, that's about it. For Ikko, it's kind of almost bare bones for them, because they also have for sale, at least the last I looked, is the OH2, and that's listed at $40 on sale. And with that, you get a little pin there. This is for the OH2. With OH2, you'd get that little pin. And I do have 2 of these tips on there, but you get all these tips. You get some rubber coated foams, a 6 pair of these special tips there, and as you can see, I ended up using that set there. And I should have been prepared. I actually was not intending on speaking about those, but since I brought them up, let me see if I can. Oh, okay, I do have them next to me. With those, $40, you get all those tips. You get a really big box. You get this little case. No case with these, even though these have an MSRP of $50. So tons more accessories with the OH2. They're very similar price now, and the OH2 is almost always below 50 now. It's never the $80 it used to be. So keep that in mind as I go into this video. Now back to the OH300. Here's the cable. Now the cable doesn't look that bad. It really doesn't. However, it's a junk cable. I mean, it feels nice. It hangs nice. Doesn't... Okay, I take that back. It actually sounds a little odd. Not necessarily odd, but it doesn't help the OH300. And again, I'll get into that a little later. But this cable, like I said, looks nice, feels nice. Has QDC ends. But when I measure it, just like the old junk KZ cables, it measures well over 1 ohm. And in this case, it's even showing the same poor QC that the KZ cables do, and just KZ in general does. There's definitely something weird going on here. I don't know if Ikko sourced this IM from a company that also makes KZ stuff, or if KZ made this for Ikko. I don't know. There's something very odd going on here. Because, like, almost all the KZ wires seem to measure 1.1 ohm. And a lot of times, at least in my experience with the KZs I've had, one side will measure 1.1 and the other one will be off. So you might have one off 10-20% up or down. This particular cable that came with this OH300, none of my other IMs has this issue. But this, let me rephrase that, none of my other IMs outside of the KZ ones and their stock cables has this issue. But this is 1.1, I think, on the left side, and 1.3 ohms on the right side. You really don't notice too much. It almost seems to play some role in, not necessarily a channel imbalance, but almost creates a different sound stage in a way. Not bad, not good, but it does shift things ever so slightly. So I almost immediately had to stop using this cable. I actually started using the stock cable that came with the PR2. Alright, so now let's get what we're actually here for. The OH300. Here's the IM. Not sure what you can see there. Hopefully you can see some of the components. Let's wipe that off a bit. And hopefully you can see some of the components in there. There's it looks like they have one resistor for the positive, one resistor for the negative, and a couple capacitors. I don't know the values of any of them. And I tried to look and get pictures in there, because you can see somewhat, but you really can't get a clean view of what it's attached to on the board. Like, you can see they do have it marked plus and minus on the inside, and you can see the wires hooked up to the circuit board, but I can't see well enough in there to figure out if it's actually going through the components on the back, or whether it's just passing through bare traces on the bottom of the board. Like, they kind of have a mess going on under there, and I almost wonder if it's for a reason. But it does share, at least as far as that goes, let me see, a lot with, if I can get that off. Oh, and of course the tip fell off too. We'll put that there. This is the OH2. Absolutely gorgeous IM. Possibly one of the best built IMs I own. Like, I just love everything about the look and feel of this IM. It is still something I use on a regular. I might use the OH2 more than any other IM I own because of its size and comfort. And the sound quality is pretty darn impressive, especially at $40. But anyway, as you can see, the OH2 also has that circuit board on the back. Has components. It looks like it might have actually a little bit more going on with this circuit board. Maybe the same amount of components though, but it's definitely a different layout, much smaller layout. But it seems to be a theme, at least for some of the Ikko stuff. As you can see with the OH300, again, I'm not using the stock tips. These things are huge. They look like a KZIM. They're built like a KZIM. The comfort is like a KZIM. It's nothing terrible, but there's a lot here that makes it really seem like a KZIM. Let's see. I don't have a KZ next to me, but what I do have next to me is old CCA, what is this? C12. And it kind of looks like this is the old one before they started getting the fatter shapes, and I can't remember, what was it, the ZAS or ZAX, I don't remember. But anyway, it reminds me a lot of the KZ stuff. Even the plastic and the metal back, like it feels so similar. And also, as you can see, God, it would help a lot if I get center, but even the nozzles, I apologize for the lighting, but fortunately it is what it is at the moment. But very similar, maybe not quite as long, but I mean, they're very similar IMs. Hopefully you can see the driver there. And it does have kind of, obviously I can't show you in this video, but if you shine a light in there, there is one hole in the middle of the driver, and the rest is sealed off. But you can see if I could speak, you can see the dome, and the dome kind of has like a almost a milky, creamy color to it. You can also see some crystals. So there's definitely texture to it. It's definitely a certain type of driver, whether it's what it claims to be, I don't know, but certainly not just a plain driver. Now, again, paid $30 for these. Can't complain too much. The comfort is nice. They are huge. These things stick out of your ear. Like, basically what I have blocked off here is about as deep as they go in my ear. I'll have about that much hanging out of my ear. Definitely not something I'd really I like to wear in public, which kind of defeats the purpose. Well, it doesn't, but it's a pretty big negative in my opinion for a budget IM, because best part about IMs in the $30 range and stuff is you don't have to worry about damaging them. So you want to go for a run, play some basketball or something, and have your IMs in. You know, if they fall, so what? These things are so big, they're going to fall. You're going to hit them on something, the slightest bump will knock them out your ears. It's I don't know. They're ugly, and they're just too big to be kind of useful outdoors. That's why I love these things. They're small. Half the time, they're outside of the cable, they're almost unnoticeable. But again, according to the MSRP, they are, I guess, technically two different price brackets. But I don't know. I guess kind of depends how big your ears are. I don't know. For me, these things are too big. They're like almost Dioko looking ridiculous the way they stick out of my ears. If they do, the only thing making these slightly better is it doesn't have a big giant red or big giant circular oval piece of glass. It only has this odd shaped piece of glass, which I would rather have them. Well, I'm sure they didn't spend nothing but pennies on this glass and that stupid coating underneath. I don't want to say you're never going to see the coating. Maybe somebody will see the coating, but if your coating looks anything like my coating, you don't want anybody to see the coating. I took this outside, and it doesn't get... It was 90 degrees out. I'm standing in no shade, getting blasted by the sunlight. And these turn, they did get a hue of blue going, and it took a while. Like for it to get even noticeable, it took a couple minutes. And then after about 5 to 10 minutes, it started getting relatively dark, but that's when I really started noticing where they had glue and where they didn't coat the glass. Like, if you can see the metal under there, like these parts where it says Ikko there and that there, there's none of that blue coating in those two spots, and it blotches in. So it almost looks like there's just a mess of glue or something, like it's all blotched out. You get this almost like white creamy color right around here, right down there, and then this nice looking like blue hue through the middle of it. So it looks a mess. It really does. I wish they didn't add that. I wish they would have put the 10 cents or whatever it is they spent on that nonsense and actually gave us a more comfortable shell. Not more comfortable, but a more practical shell. Now, as far as sound, I was originally disappointed, then ecstatic, and then I was kind of brought back to reality. Like, in a way, they're a mixed bag. Stock tips, they're sibilant, and it's not sibilant in a painful way. It's sibilant in a just, oh my god, this is annoying type of way. You're not going to get a headache from it. You're just going to go crazy from it eventually. So it's not the painful type. I mean, maybe some people are more tolerable of that than I am, but eventually it really gets to me. Again, it doesn't give me a headache or anything, but it just gets to me. It's this upper mid-range, lower treble peak. Like, it really is like the graph shows on the back. Like, you hear that. And everything else sounds wonderful. It's a slow sounding IM. Like, it really, especially when you first get it and you're not thinking power. You're just plugging it into a little cheap dongle or something. You're like, man, it's slow, warm, but then you have that just aggressive sibilance, like that S just really bites and drags on, and it just gets super annoying. I tried a whole bunch of tips. What I ended up settling on, like even the wide boards that I normally like, weren't enough to get these where I want them. I for the love of God, I cannot remember what these tips are. For some reason, I have a whole bunch of pair that are exactly like this, but it's a really soft silicone, somewhat thick, and the nozzle like almost comes to the end. And it's, I guess, just a normal bore, but what really made the difference was the length of that the length of the stem for this tip and that bore. Having it like that material, excuse me, this material, I don't know why, but it always seems like the soft but still thick material really helps a lot with sibilance, and switching to these made a very noticeable difference. It's, I gotta stop saying shocking, but it was surprising to me, the difference it made, because everything sounded odd when I first put them in. It was almost like this reverb going on with everything, and then I had this strange sibilance going on, and like, again, it wasn't the painful kind, but it was that super annoying kind, and it was just overall unpleasant. Did all types of tip switching, got to these. The sibilance was under control. There's still cases where it gets a little bit, but it's actually at the point where you're not going to go crazy, so it's completely tolerable, and if I can tolerate it, I'm sure others shouldn't have a problem with it. Everything kind of became a more natural sounding, and it started really enjoying them. They were like, it even gained some speed, but not much. But I started enjoying them. They were nice and relaxing at this point. It started reminding me of the Melee, which I have here, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But it really started reminding me of the Melee, and I'm listening. And for some reason, throughout the 2 weeks, I didn't break out the Melee. I'm listening to other new stuff. Because this, you can't even really, I don't think you can get the Melee anymore. So I'm comparing it to other stuff I have, and yeah, enjoying it. It's a little different sound. It's much more relaxed, but still competent. And then plugging into my desktop, I have a THX789, I think it is. Some old thing. And plug it in there, just, oh my god, all of a sudden I'm like, the speed finally started showing through. Detail I wasn't hearing before at all is now just completely obvious. It's there without hunting for it. And I'm now blown away, like, oh my god, this is what $30 got me? This is insane. And then earlier today, before doing this, I'm like, okay, let me just freshen up on it, get a listen. And then again, I put it in my phone, and what was I using? That 7 hertz, that little 7 hertz dongle. And again, I'm reminded of the Melee again, and it's like, something's weird. Except, like, it's slow again, and I'm missing some of the detail. Sound stage is kind of small, and everything is starting to feel congested. There's still separation, but everything's really close now. Like, what the hell's going on? And I switched to that the Shio balanced DAC amp thing, that little dongle, and a little better, but not much. Okay. And I was trying to stick with the QDC stuff. It didn't feel like putting in a whole balancing, although I did end up doing that, but not yet at this point. So I break out the Hibby FC4. That thing's basically, it's supposed to be twice the power of that Shio thing, basically, especially in the single-ended port, the 3.5. So I put it in there, and now I'm getting the detail again. The bass is way more detailed. It's snappier, it's punchier, and the differences from the Melee are now, it's not so much remind me of the Melee like it was. But going back and forth with all the low power DACs, I went back in reverse, started going back and forth between the OH10 and this Melee here. And it's just the Melee's kicking its ass every time, going through the Melee. More detailed, better sound stage. It's the only thing it was losing out on was, I guess, the timbre, the tone. It just didn't sound as natural as the OH300. But then, so I'm progressing up the gear, more power, more power, more power. I hit the FC4 again, and now tables turn. This starts getting, and mind you, I haven't even went to balance yet, still single-ended. Now the OH300 is clean, more clear, more bass, more natural sounding, warm. It's the separation is now matching what I'm getting on the Melee. The detail is matching, if not exceeding, what I'm getting on the Melee. More treble energy. And even that sibilant seems even more controlled, so it's now completely pleasurable. I'm going back and forth, and where the Melee was winning on all the lower powered gear, once I started getting the higher powered gear, the OH300 just completely took over. And it's not like this landslide, but when I went back to the 789, it was like I shouldn't even be comparing these two. I'd hook this up to the 789, and yeah, it was better, but it was not much better. I hooked that up, and it was like, okay, it almost made them two different tiers of IMs. And it's what's even more weird, like with the FC4, I don't have, or even switching to high gain. It's not that there's a volume difference. Like I can leave the volume setting exactly the same between the two, and if I switch between the two, at least to my ears, the volume seems virtually identical. But when I start putting that more volts, I switch to high gain and turn the volume way down, this sounds better. So, and everything I have, as far as like the portable stuff, when I have like the Shio or that FC4, when I switch it into high gain and it's able to do max at 4 volts, all of a sudden, regardless of having the volume level the same, when it can put out the 4 volts, the OH300 starts coming out on top. And it's not as it's still kind of a warmer, it's a more full-bodied experience than the Melee. Still to this day, the Melee is one of my favorite $50 IMs. I don't think anybody can go wrong. It has good technical abilities, good sound stage, and inoffensive sound. And it's very similar, especially once you start getting the power up. It's like, once you get that power up, it's like someone tried to copy this, but just do it a little better. Make the sound bigger, more authoritative. So it's almost like they really were trying to copy it. But once you start running lower power stuff, it's like a bad copy. So I'm kind of iffy on whether or not I can recommend this, or whether or not I should. I mean, at $35, $30, why not? But I don't know if it gives anything unique. Like if you had the gear and you want something to scale up, something with nice body, with good bass, because it really does have good bass. Like the bass is, even in all the cases, the bass is more and bigger than the bass of the Melee. It's just, it doesn't get as tight or tighter than the Melee until you start moving up to something with power. In all cases, the treble extension seems better on the OH300, but it doesn't make a world of difference with a lot of the music that I've tried it with. So it's not like this night and day improvement just because of that little, because they're both kind of going for a laid back sound in a way. As long as you ignore that super aggressive upper mid lower treble thing they got going on with this. Again, you got to sort that with tips. But once I started feeding it power, I was kind of just taken back by the sound I was getting out of a $30 IM. But again, there's the OH2. And the OH2 sounds great with everything. I don't have to put it through any crazy balance jacks. I don't need any 4 volts going through it. I don't know, no high current, no anything. I don't have it does scale, but it's never, if it's better than something on good gear, it'll still be better than that thing when it's on bad gear. That can't be said for the OH300. Like, look at the size difference here. That's just ridiculous. They both are single driver IMs. Granted, this one's a 8mm. I don't know. If you're in the mids, and you can do with, alright, these are a pain fit. The OH2s are a pain to fit. I know a lot of people complain about these weird tips here. Let's see if I can get this back on, the weird tips. Now, personally, because the OH300 isn't anything crazy unique to me. Like, granted, it is good. It is very, very good for $30. At $50, it's good. It competes. It belongs right there with the other $50 IMs, but it's not a standout. Whereas this, in that $50 bracket, the OH2 is a standout because it has a unique traits. It's unique in my opinion. Like, that is a mid-focused IM. Like, if you want vocals and you want the vocals to be the star, you want the detail in the vocals, but you're limited to that $50 range, the OH2, great accessories. It just comes down to that tip that you might not be able to see because of my poor lighting. Like, they really are difficult to fit. However, for me, I was lucky enough. It took some time too, don't get me wrong. I really had to try all different things, and what ended up working for me was just making sure every time I put them on, I just pull the cable, I twist the cable a little bit away from my head. Because normally if I leave it, for some reason, it doesn't take much pressure at all to just move it slightly, and it'll break the seal. But oddly, when I have the cable just kind of pulled out a little bit, pushing towards the back of my ear, it's like it pushes it in and locks it in place. And so I can go out running, I get a good seal, I get good sound. And when you get a good seal, even though you see the graph for the OH2 and it looks like the bass severely rolls off, which it is a rolled off bass, but it's nicely detailed, it's not single note sounding. There's enough quantity, especially if your focus is the mids and vocals, which it should be if you're considering the OH2. And I know even if you have issues with these tips, to me it sounds best with these tips, those weird tips. Like, it really does, because it has such a nice sound stage, because it is a thin silicone for the most part, and it creates a nice environment of music, and I really, really enjoy these, and I always go back to them. They're pleasant, nothing offensive. And see if you can see that. It's the foam tips that it comes with that has the silicone on the outside. These seem to be the go-to if you can't get those to work. These seem to work for everybody else. Now, for me, it kind of blunts the sound a little bit. Like, it softens it and it takes away. It just doesn't make some of the detail this is capable of as apparent. But still very enjoyable. And I do have another, let's see, I don't know if you guys recognize these here and what these might be. I plan on those, or whatever that word is. Not even going to try it right now. I've had these for 4 or 5 days now. Paid $80 for them. Unfortunately, when I got them, there was no sale going on. I will be doing a video of these very soon. But only reason why I want to bring these out, because it's almost like they tried to go for the similar fit as the OH2, like super small, and they're attractive pair of IEMs. But look forward to a video on these, another HBB collab. And like you said, I think hopefully you guys seen my PR2 review. Yeah, and I brought that up because of the Melee, another HBB thing. And this, I love these, man. Everybody should have a pair of those. It's unfortunate that they can't really get them. But as far as the OH300, yes, I would recommend them, but I don't know what their selling point is, to be honest. Like, the glass is a gimmick. I'm not sold on this electronics thing. Like, the sound is nice, full bodied. It is overall smooth. It's just that mid-range sibilance that ruined it, and the need of power. Like, I would love to know what this driver sounds like without all that going on. I really wish they could have tuned it without all that, because for some reason, whatever they got going on here requires power, and not volume, but voltage, to get the capabilities to shine through, to get that detail out, to get the soundstage going, to get the separation going. It's I've seen Zeos, I've seen his review on the OH300, and I don't know, for some reason he didn't mention, at least not that I recall, any excessive peaks in the upper mid lower treble range, nothing about annoying sibilance. And I find it hard to believe that somebody wouldn't notice that. Like, it sounds like the graph looks. It really does. Like, you have to have tips. Like, if you're buying this and you don't have any other tips, and you plan to use the stock tips, look somewhere else. If you have a nice collection of tips and you want to do some tip rolling, invest. Okay, get yourself the OH300, especially at $30. At $30, these are capable of being better than anything else at that price range. They're capable of being better than a lot of stuff in the $50 price range. It's just, it takes other stuff to get you there. And you might not want to spend the money on that stuff. There's just nothing special enough here to say, oh, these are a must. Like, at the time, I would say the Melee's more of a must. Like, I really wish you could still get those, because these are just, in my opinion, great all-arounders. They're comfortable. You can listen to any type of music on them. Everything sounds good. You might not get like any super crisp treble going on. However, take a look at these tips. These are very short stem, really wide bore. Like, you can you can see way in there. That made them much speedier, much more clear, more separated. Like, that really brought out the technicalities of the Melee. So, comparing these two, same price, if this was available today, with these tips, for someone who just wants plug and play, I'd say Melee. For someone who just wants plug and play, OH2. Unless you're a bass head and you need bass. If you need bass, get yourself the OH300. Everything I plug this into, no matter what, they're still, as long as you fix that mid-range peak, that sibilantry, as long as you fix that, they have good bass. Equally as much as the Melee, if not more. It's more full-bodied. And it's just weird. It's not having power limits these things, because I don't want to sit, because they are dynamic. They do reproduce music relatively accurately, but you gotta put something, you gotta pump some voltage through there. Just a normal dongle is not gonna do it for you. They are not that dynamic. They're not that impressive. They are acceptable, good, average for the $50 price range out of normal stuff. But they can start to exceed that and excel at a great stuff. I really can't say much more than that. These are, I don't know, kind of let down. Like, they're great, fun to listen to, enjoyable, especially when powered right, but the build quality kind of sucks. Like, this is just so KZ to me. Like, there's even bubbles in this plastic. There's some bubbles up in here. I don't know. I just don't like it. Like the looks. I don't like the feel. I hate the QDC connector. And why go through the trouble of putting this coating on thin glass that changes color outside? In your ears, you're never going to see it. Only someone else is going to be able to see it if you're wearing these. And if somebody else sees it, they're just going to see a blotchy mess because of how poor of a job they did coating that glass. I would love, I like Ikko, but I don't know. I really think there's something going on with this pair. Like, they bought too much stuff from KZ or something. I don't know. It's just kind of hard to recommend these, to be honest. Like, they're good, but with the stuff coming out now and stuff that's already out, like, they do seem kind of definitely competitive to the C3, which of course I'm not prepared for and don't have near me. Like, I'd really like the C3. It's a little aggressive, but the sound stage is relatively equal until, again, you start adding power to this. But like, that thing just sounds good and fun on almost everything, and it does scale. It really does. But I'd save up, wait for some of the stuff coming out, because you never know. There could be something surprising that might be a little bit more, might be twice the price more, but might actually be worth it. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I'm probably confused you all with this one. I'm confused myself. I rambled on for 40 minutes and don't even think I talked much about the sound. Like, okay, let me just do a really quick summary of the sound. Metal does sound good. Rap would be best for these if you get that sibilance under control. If you find tips that work, then rap's actually really good with these. What else? I don't know about... classical's kind of good with these too. That does sound good. I know acoustic sounds really good with these, at least to me, because it sounds so natural. Just kind of... I wish it had more sound stage. Like, it should... I really want it... For an IM should perform. It shouldn't need crazy expensive stuff or a large amount of voltage to perform. They need to stop with this, because this OH2 doesn't need all that crazy power to perform as it should. It's, I don't know. And planners, this has a bigger gap in its performance than the Dioko and stuff does, or that PR2. Like, you can plug the PR2 in directly into your phone and then into a desktop amp, and there will be a smaller change than this in your phone to a desktop amp. Like, it's weird how much change happens when this gets power. But there's a good amount of bass, full body bass, detailed bass. It's kind of slow, but there's authority to it. There's body to it. it's not super detailed until you start pumping power through it, but once you pump power through it, it gets a lot of detail. Soundstage narrow. Layering congested. Again, you stick power to it, it opens up. The layering becomes impressive. Like, not impressive for $100 type INs, but impressive for 30, 40, 50-ish IMs. Treble's actually pretty darn good for me. The treble, at least the upper treble, is at the levels I like. Like, I can listen to like guitars and stuff still has some bite, still has some texture. Snares and stuff still have some bite to them, whereas on the Melee there's not much bite there until you go crazy wide bore short stem like that. Then it's almost pointless though explaining it any further, because $30 IM it's a buy, $50 IM, yeah, I don't think it's worth the hassle to get the good sound out of it, because there's other stuff you can get good sound out of for much less trouble, and it's too much hassle for an IM. If you want to put that much work into something, spend the money on headphones, better experience. So it kind of, for me, it defeats the purpose. Anyway, sorry about this stupid long review, this crazy, confusing review. Hopefully, I want to try to get this up as soon as possible. I would like to get this up while it's still on sale. Whatever this other HBB thing, the Kailua or whatever it is, I would like to get this video up very soon. Look forward to that. Thank you guys for watching. Again, sorry this thing is crazy long again. Appreciate it. Leave a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, all the normal stuff. Thank you guys. Have a good night.